All right. I believe I'm recording. If I'm not, and I talk for the next hour, I'm gonna cuss when I figured out that I didn't do anything at all. But here's what we're gonna do. A lot of people have missed a lot of class. I'm not terribly happy about that, but it is what it is, and this material is probably the most important material of the semester of the year for the AP government class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to teach the entire judicial unit on this right here, and then if I'm not hadn't run out of steam, try to do Congress as well. Hopefully, I can get it all in there in about an hour. And what you do is you don't listen to the whole hour. You go in and you find the section of it that you didn't get that you were out for. Also, you got to test. The reason we're doing this is you got to test. So if there's something that you're not sure about it, you're looking at the review sheet, find the part of it, and go back over that. So you use it however you will. What I want to do is make sure that we don't test on this thing and nobody knows it very well, and we blow the test, and then we got to go back and I got to reteach it anyway. So I figured this is the best strategy to use. All right, so here I'm talking about the judicial branch. Okay, judicial branch is Article 3. Article 1 is about Congress. Article 2 is about the President. Article 3 is about the courts. The Article 3 on the courts is the shortest of those articles. Hamilton wrote about Article 3 in Federal 78 and said, don't worry about it. You're not going to have, if you're worried about tyranny, the government being too strong, this isn't the one to worry about. Okay, so that's Hamilton in Federal 78. Okay, judicial review wasn't in there. The words judicial review don't appear in the Constitution. It's going to come with Marbury versus Madison in 1803. And that's going to give the court judicial review over national laws passed by Congress. Little known case, Martin versus Hunter's Lessee in 1816. I don't know the details of it, but that's one that gives it really the judicial review over state law, which today may be even more important. Roe versus Wade, Texas versus Johnson. A lot of these court cases everybody fights about has something to do with the state rather than the national government. No, the Obamacare case was coming out of the national government, but a lot of them come out of the states. Okay. It does say that the Chief Justice preside in impeachment trials. Judges will be given life tenure. We know that the court is really ruling on almost all the controversial cultural questions. Folks get really fired up about right up to the travel ban. And maybe if they had known that it was going to be ruling on all these things, then they wouldn't have given it the life tenure. Okay, here's what I'm doing this. I'm going to, you hit pause. I'm going to stare at it for a second. You can go back and forth, but I'm not doing the, I'm just going to take the opportunity to stare at this for a second. And then move on. All right. The next thing to look at is jurisdiction. All right, you're going to notice that the word state's in there on 3 of the 4 bullet points, right? And so the idea is a state, like a person, is not fit to be judged in its own case. So the Supreme Court handles that. Alabama and Georgia, from time to time, will fight each other over the water in Lake Lanier. So if 2 states are fussing with each other, you need the federal court to step in. If it's the U.S. versus a state, which was really, Washington versus the United States here last week. Foreign ambassadors, public ministers, and other diplomats, and a state citizen of another state. By my understanding, this is original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. It's certainly federal court jurisdiction. All right, other federal cases, when the federal government's a party, the federal government was a party in the travel ban case. Anything having to do with, I don't know why that happened, makes me mad. Anything having to do with something on the ocean, because the ocean is not in a state. So a state isn't qualified to make the determination. If it's a constitutional question, whether or not the travel ban is constitutional. Civil suits between citizens with a lot of money. I remember a civil suit, that's when somebody's suing somebody. Okay, so here's the dual court system. We're most of the time concerned about the federal route. So there's 94 district courts, 13 circuit courts of appeals. The district courts have what's called original jurisdiction, meaning original jurisdiction means a case starts there. They hear the facts of the case. Then if it gets appealed, it goes to one of these 13 circuit courts of appeals. The travel ban was first heard by a judge in Washington, right? A week ago, and then late last week, Friday, Thursday, the Ninth Circuit Court, I believe it was, threw out the travel ban. I don't think we originally said that Trump was going to appeal to the Supreme Court. I don't think he is. The latest is that he's not. He's going to rewrite the thing to try to account for concerns that the court have that this may be discriminating based on religion and violating the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Okay, the state route. If I'm stealing Jolly Ranchers or something like that, that would go to a lower court. A murder charge or something would go to a superior court. Both of these have original jurisdiction. The case starts there. Is what original jurisdiction means. Jurisdiction means the power to hear a case. Original jurisdiction is power to hear a case first. These two have appellate jurisdiction, meaning that the case goes there on appeal. So you got the State Court of Appeals, State Supreme Court. All right. At the very top of the Supreme Court, most of them, there are some, as we've looked at, that it has original jurisdiction over. Most of them come by appeal. Millions of court cases a year. The Supreme Court hears 80 of them per year. Okay, so there's out west. And there's kind of our interesting thing that's going on. So you got the 94 district courts and then the territories in Washington, D.C. over here. Here's the circuit courts. But what's interesting is somebody's not happy with what the president's doing. Somebody wasn't happy with what President Obama was doing. They could bring it to court here in this very, red states, reliably red states over here in Texas or something like that. And somebody's not happy with what Trump's doing, well, they can, they can bring it to court. Oh, I'm clapping. I'm sorry because the lights went off in here. Just a second. Dang it. Man, it's not to cuss about it. All right, just said dang. Okay, so what my point being, that if somebody's not happy with something the president does, they can take it to court, which is why and they can find a favorable area of the country to take it to court. And judges in liberal areas are more liberal, and judges in more conservative areas are more conservative. So the result is a lot of times they'll get what they want in these lower courts and then make its way to the Supreme Court. So if there's something controversial, good chance the Supreme Court hears it. All right, let's work our way down here. All right, boom. Okay, I'll let you look at that. I'm going to drink some of this Coca-Cola right here. Okay. Now, in class, I didn't make it take all the notes over Marbury versus Madison because I had 3 full headings, and good gracious, that's way too many. But I'll go ahead and talk about it here. All right, let's see. So Adams lost the election to Jefferson in 1800. So he's all tore up, so he appoints a bunch of judges. It's not 94. That's a mistake. I got that from that 94. I don't know how many it is. Let's say 20-ish. I'm going to write that. 20-ish. We'll say it's 20-ish Federalists to be. One of them ends up being John Marshall becomes Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. All right, but Marbury's one we're worried about. Okay, so Jefferson sees it as a trick. And so you got this thing, the commission that every judge has got to get. Marbury wants his commission, and Jefferson tells Madison, don't give him the dang thing. All right, so Marbury gets all upset. and says that the Supreme Court can make you give me the commission, a court order. They can issue a court order called a writ of mandamus that'll make you give the commission. There was a part of the Judiciary Act 1789 that gave the court original jurisdiction in cases involving these court orders. The Supreme Court had the original jurisdiction over that. Mackenzie, why didn't you tell us all this stuff? Well, I was kind of in a hurry. I wanted to be through with the course by the time y'all taking mock exams. Between, what was it, the politics of last semester, and then, we're doing these little bills from time to time, and that keeps us right on time, but we're not ahead. I'm okay with that. I think it's probably a good thing, but so I've been skipping a little bit. Okay, so Marshall, he's in a tight spot. So if he finds for Marbury, the president's going to ignore him, and then the court looks weak. If he finds for Madison that the president's above the law, and you have a too strong president, that's something folks are worried about right now, something I'm worried about right now, that the president could have too much power and be above the law. You don't want that. Okay, so he says he should give Marbury the job, but he can't make him. Can't make him give him the job. All right. Why not? Because the Judiciary Act gave the Supreme Court original jurisdiction over writ of mandamus cases. But the Constitution says the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court can't be changed. Okay. Again, so that is going more in depth than I went in class on Marbury versus Madison. So then I just went down here. Okay, so it's declaring the law unconstitutional as judicial review. All right, it's not in there. So Marshall says, hey, it's the job of the Judicial Department to declare what the law is. That right there is that's engraved. I don't know why that happens. Engraved on the Supreme Court building right there, 1803. All right. So there it is again. Supreme Court's got judicial review, and it's making the judicial branch separate and co-equal. So, that's really what Gorsuch was disheartened by when he said he was disheartened that a president would criticize an individual judge, because it's implying that the judicial branch is not separate and co-equal. Okay, so that's Marbury versus Madison. There's questions. Look at them, answer them, do what you want with it. Let's look at this one right quick. I don't think I covered this one in class either. All right, there's the federal cases. Anything involving a federal law. So, like we said, on the ocean, when you're robbing a bank, money is made by the U.S. Treasury. It's not made by Georgia. It's the U.S. Postal Service. Your taxes, generally speaking, that somebody would invade, are federal taxes. So we're talking about, breaking federal law. Most laws are state laws, so most times somebody goes to court with the state court. You can write that down if you want to. Original jurisdiction is power to hear a case first, and appellate jurisdiction is power to hear a case on appeals. It's got both. All right, the Supreme Court has both. The district courts have original, court of appeals has appellate. We've said that. I didn't want to be redundant. I would have lost some of y'all in class. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's the next big. So you got the whole question of what the court does in jurisdiction and Marbury versus Madison. All right, so that's like topic number one, big topic number one. Big topic number two is Supreme Court cases. All right, we've said only Supreme Court's mentioned. There's the Supreme Court right there. I don't believe Souter is over there on the right, so Sotomayor is not on there, so that's not the most recent Supreme Court. But there's one chief and there's 8 associates. They serve for a term of good behavior. Either till they retire, they die, or they get kicked off. Remember, judges can be impeached and convicted. All right, less than 100 out of 10,000 appeal cases. 4 of the 9 have to want to hear a case. So the court is the branch that is on the side of the minority. Freedom of speech is protected because that speech may be unpopular. So you only need 4 of the 9. You don't need a majority. They issue this kind of thing called a writ of certiorari. They're certifying the case. Okay, it's got involved, to make it's got involved a significant constitutional issue or be appealed by the government. So if President Trump decided to appeal the travel ban, it would make it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court wouldn't say we're not going to hear it. The case has to be right, meaning it's going on right now. Well, travel ban is going on right now. Morning Joe made the case that the state of Washington doesn't have standing. You needed somebody in Washington rather than just the state to do the suing in that case. But the parties have to have standing. They're going to be hurt. That lady, Jane Roe, she wasn't going to be able to have her abortion unless the Supreme Court gave her the right to have that abortion. So she had something to lose. The state of Texas had something to lose. Their anti-abortion law in the Roe v. Wade. Okay, the Solicitor General is the person, is number 2 person in the Justice Department. So the Attorney General is number 1, Solicitor General is number 2. Argues cases for the government. Okay, there we go. You get to look at that. Ask yourself questions. Go back and forth. See how you do it. And I get to take a couple of swigs of Coke. Okay, there's something about the logic of the court unit that I really like. So we've talked about the court and how many cases make it, so now we got the court in session. All right, so each side submits briefs. Briefs are a summary of the case. The lawyers write the briefs. Now, the briefs are not brief. A lot of times they're hundreds of pages long, so the law clerks have to read them and summarize them, write a brief of the brief, and give it to the judges. Interest groups also write amicus curiae briefs. Amicable means friendly, something like that. Curiae is court, so we're going Latin here. And so these are the interest groups providing valuable information on either side of the case to the judges. Let's see. In a criminal case, you got a prosecution and defense. In a civil case, it's a lawsuit, so there's a plaintiff and defense. There's always a defendant. Civil case, somebody's suing, they're complaining about the other side. Okay, so you got briefs, number 1. Number 2, the oral arguments, 30 minutes each, they get interrupted. All right, number 3, step 3, the conference. The judges leave and they discuss this thing privately. There it is. I'm swigging. And so here we go. All right, the decision is who wins and what's the score. So if the Super Bowl ended up being 34-31 or whatever it is, that would be the decision of the Super Bowl. All right, so the court will then explain its decisions with opinions. All right, so you got all these different types of opinions. Number 1, the majority opinion. That's most important. They're explaining why they decided the way they did. Dissenting opinion, a lot of times somebody disagrees. A lot of cases are not unanimous, so the minority explains why they disagree. A concurring opinion is somebody who will agree, but they don't think the right explanation has been given for it. And a plurality is when nobody gets a majority. So you could have a 7-2 vote, but it could be 4 for one reason, 3 for another reason, so then you don't have a majority. Whoop. There we go. So look at that. Now I'm swigging. So there's that, so it's the briefs, oral arguments, that's the 30-minute thing. Conference, that's just talking. Decision, who wins by how much. 4 types of opinion. All right, you want to review it yourself. That's a good thing. And here we go. Okay, so when they write the thing, the chief writes it a lot, or it gets somebody else. He assigns it to somebody else if he's in the majority. They're going to serve as precedents, examples that have to be followed. Ever since Brown versus Board of Education, courts can't resegregate schools. Ever since Roe versus Wade, courts can't outlaw abortion. All right, so you got another Latin phrase, stare decisis, right there. It means the decision stands. Courts have to follow precedent. The cases are real controversial today. Once upon a time, back in the 30s during the Depression, most stuff was about money or something like that. didn't involve freedom of speech and religion, that sort of thing. Today, about half the cases involve that sort of thing. The Muslim ban, freedom of religion. Judges are supposed to be above politics, but now they're kind of the final say on controversial political decisions. So that's a big deal. There you go. You're reviewing, I'm swigging. Okay. So there's the court process. Big thing next one. So I don't know, you got the jurisdiction of the court, how, the power of the court set up by Article 3. Then you've got how a case works. Now you've got how a person gets on the court, and you in the films y'all had, you watched that stuff. All right, got to be nominated the president, confirmed by the Senate. Presidents defer to the judgment of senators from the judge's state, so that's senatorial courtesy. I don't know where Gorsuch is from. Let's say that he's from, let's make it a red state since he's a conservative. Let's say he's from Alabama. I don't believe he is. But the two Alabama senators would need to sign off on it. They don't have to. It's a courtesy. It's a norm. It's not a law. But that's a courtesy. Okay. People, the two sides not being real nice to each other on confirming nominations. Supreme Court judges usually get on there, but you got this delay. So the Republicans did it to Clinton, then Democrats get it to Bush, and they filibustered some nominations. All right, I believe we have 4 slides on this heading. They want judges that are going to agree with them, but you have this situation where judges drift to the left. Judges generally don't drift to the right, but they sometimes drift to the left. Most famously, Earl Warren, who was the Republican governor of California. And there's already speculation that Gorsuch might end up being maybe a little more centrist than Trump thought, since Gorsuch spoke out against it. Okay, 75% of the Supreme Court nominees get on there. Cabinet nominees vary, it's 98%. They're not going to be on there for so long. So it's a bigger deal for a Supreme Court nominee, and so it's a harder process. There you go. Okay. This is going to spell out rice with 2 R's, I believe, or maybe 3 R's. Let's go this way. Look at there. Race. Okay. Rewards and religion. Or you can go rewards and religion and then ethnicity, and then ideology and competence. Okay, let me explain them rather than playing around with the first letter. Competence, you want somebody who knows what they're doing, they need to be a judge. If they're not a judge, it can be hard for them to get on there. They at least got to have a law degree. Remember, there's no age requirement. So Walton McKenzie, my 8th grade son, is old enough to be on the Supreme Court, but then as soon as he got nominated, people started asking where he got his law degree from. Ideology, they want somebody who agrees with them. The Roosevelt made the court more liberal. Reagan made the court more conservative. Court, chipped into abortion rights a little bit during the Reagan years. Rewards. Judges are loyal party members, and so if they've been a loyal party member for a long time, that's going to help them. Classic case of this was this guy, Abe Fortas, who was Lyndon Johnson's right-hand man, and he put him on the Supreme Court. Religion. They're mostly Catholic on the court today. Ginsburg's Jewish. Scalia was Catholic. I believe Thomas is Catholic. Okay, I guess my problem here, if I scoot this over, can I then get African Americans up here so it doesn't look so funky? Nope. I don't know what my problem is here. But so there's been 2 African Americans. Thurgood Marshall, he was the Brown versus Board education lawyer. Oh my gosh. And then Clarence Thomas, whom we have now seen a video about and know pretty well. He's an interesting fellow. Very conservative African-American judge. An originalist. Okay, 4 women, O'Connor for Reagan, and then the 3 ladies that are on there now. Ginsburg's pretty outspoken. She's Jewish, and she may retire soon, but since she's pretty liberal, I think she's going to try to outlast Trump. So I guess you could probably predict she's somebody that may die on the court rather than retire. Okay, so it spells out Rice. RR, race, what was it? Rewards and religion, ideology, competence, and then ethnicity, I guess is the way I would do that. Okay, next you got confirmation process. The nominations get sent to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Former Vice President Joe Biden was once upon a time, he was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee during the confirmation of Clarence Thomas. Ted Kennedy in that picture was also on the Judiciary Committee. So the American Bar Association, remember that's the interest group, that's the lawyer's interest group. If you want to be a lawyer, you got to pass the bar exam. Rates nominees is highly qualified, qualified, or not qualified. Nobody ever gets not qualified. Thomas got qualified, and that was seen as an insult. They almost always get highly qualified. I think Gorsuch is going to get highly qualified. So then you have this vetting process, and they fill out a questionnaire about their previous work, and people look into what they've done in the past. The vetting is going very well for Gorsuch. In the process of this vetting, he was asked some questions. That's where he made the comment about a president kind of messing with the courts. I don't think he said anything specifically about Trump's specific quotes, but people kind of inferred that he was talking about Trump when he said it would be disheartening if the president criticized a specific judge. Okay, the last thing, interest groups going to lobby. So interest groups can't give money. That was a multiple choice question. They can't give money to campaigns, but they lobby for or against the nomination. 2 things interest groups about, of course. They can lobby for or against the nomination, and they can write the amicus curiae briefs. All right, probing questions will be dodged. If you ask you point blank, what's your opinion on abortion, something like that, you're not going to answer the thing. This fella Bork did way back in the Reagan years, and he didn't get confirmed. So ever since then, the moral of the story is don't give a straight answer on that question. Be a good politician. All right, so then the Judiciary Committee makes its recommendation, goes to the Senate, Senate votes. There's your questions. Okay. Next, we have these judicial philosophies. So what splits the court. So restraint's the first one. It's the belief that courts shouldn't make policy. The legislative branch. Congress makes laws. They also call themselves originalists. Scalia's an originalist. Thomas is an originalist. They tend to be Republicans. So there's a picture of 2 originalists there. Okay, strict construction of the Constitution. Government should only do what's in written. Look at the words of the Constitution. There's Roberts being introduced when he was nominated by Bush. Bush introduced him as an originalist or a strict construction or something like that. Okay. Precedents and state laws should be respected, not overturned. Judges shouldn't be making laws or policies. At this point, early in my career, I would stand up on something tall and go hand, we're better than you, but I've got a bad back now, so I can't jump down anymore. So I put like a plastic guy way up on some platform in the other class. Getting old. All right, so take a look at your questions. I wonder if I skipped that in that class. I don't know what happened there. Okay, next, activism. Belief that judges should actively work for these ideals. The words in the Constitution take a life of their own. The Constitution is a living Constitution. The words, fairness, all men are created equal. That's the Declaration of Independence, but equal protection of the laws takes on a life of its own. Activists are Democrats. They believe in liberal, they're liberals. They believe in loose construction. They believe in a living constitution that changes with the times. The founders couldn't predict all the different things we're looking at today. Wouldn't have known about a travel ban. Wouldn't have known about stuff going on the internet. All right, and it's the judges, according to the activists, just the judge's job to stand up for the minority. Sometimes people get whipped up, fomented by irresponsible leaders to hurt vulnerable minorities. Sometimes that happens. And so it's up to the judges to protect the minority rights. All right, now, in these things, this is real deal grown up. Damn, lights went off again. All right, I'll be right back. There's real deal grown up conflict here. Nobody's being silly. Majority rule is an American value, and so are minority rights. Okay, so majority rule is what restraint, the originalists believe in, and minority rights, that's what the activists believe in. State power versus federal power, right? The originalists believe in state power. Let the decisions of the states stand, and then the federal power is the activist position. Okay, legislative power is what the originalists like, and the activists like judicial power. Need to get folks to explain that or something. We've seen I had a pretty good feel for it in class. We'll see what Monday's class holds. Okay, then we're going to finish the courts here. All right, so models of decision making. So political scientists study how these judges act, and they like to predict what they think the judges are going to do. All right, well, number one thing for predicting how a judge is going to rule is, their ideology, what they believe. Liberal judges make liberal decisions, that sort of thing. Scalia's going to make a conservative decision most of the time. All right, also the behavioral model, or maybe the experience model, and you look at how their experiences affect the way they behave on the court. So in college, Clarence Thomas went to a fancy law school. I think it was Holy Cross. And he looked around, he saw other African Americans, and they didn't seem to be able to hack it. Their grades weren't as good as the white kids. And he decided that affirmative action had been bad for them, that they hadn't had to meet the same standards, and so they were struggling because of that. So that his experience in college turned him against liberalism. He had been a real left-winger until he got there. So he became a conservative as a result of those experiences in college. Okay, the next thing, strategic model. Judges are trying to, they maneuver just like politicians maneuver. And so they'll vote in such a way that'll help them later on. Log rolling, maybe they'll vote for their buddies the way their buddy's going to vote, so they'll get their buddies' help on the next one. All right, and then public opinion. In World War II, the Supreme Court ruled in the Korematsu case that that the internment camps were all right. Now, as we look back at the internment camps, we don't see them as all right. But in that context, the court was influenced by public opinion. Switching time to save 9. Roosevelt was trying to pack the court, and so because of that, one of the judges was influenced really by the pro-New Deal public opinion and started ruling for the New Deal. Okay, look out. Implementation. Sometimes governments people don't obey the Supreme Court. The Trail of Tears followed Worcester versus Georgia. You remember that. Brown versus Board of Education took 20 years to enforce Remember the Titans takes place in the 1970s. Brown versus Board of Education was in 1954. Okay, Santa Fe versus Jane Doe in 2000. Supreme Court ruled that you're not allowed to have prayers at football games. All right, this picture is not allowed, and yet, as we know very, very well, it goes on all over the South every Friday night, in spite of what the Supreme Court has ruled. Okay, let me see. I think I have this one. So this is the size of the court. And so Congress decides how big the court's going to be, and it changes sometimes. So when the radicals were in charge of Congress, they didn't want Johnson to be able to appoint anybody. So they cut 3 off of the Supreme Court, then they added 2 back when Grant became president. So I think that's kind of interesting. But Congress decides how big the Supreme Court's going to be. Okay, and then you've got the last thing here. We've got the current Supreme Court. All right. So here they are. That's Sotomayor, a liberal. That's Breyer, a liberal. Kagan is a liberal. And Alito right here is a conservative. Okay. Thomas and Scalia. Of course, Scalia has now passed, both conservatives. Roberts, kind of center-right. Kennedy is the swing vote conservative. You know, he's the most important one on there, and then Ginsburg's a liberal. Let's go ahead and put Roberts in where? Right beside Scalia. Where should he go? Yep. Okay. Roberts. And I'll put conservative. He's kind of conservative. Okay. Look at that. You believe that? Who the heck knows what that dang circle means? All right. Kennedy is the swing vote. Let's take a look at him. So he's this one right here. So in all these 4-4, all these close ones, it's kind of up to him. So he's really powerful. So there he is. 2009, 14 of the 16, 5-4 votes were on traditional ideological lines. And he voted with the conservatives 9 of those 14 times. What did I do? I skipped that one. Here, let's go right here. My bad. So only about 5-4 votes are only about 20% of the time. Almost half the decisions are unanimous. So there's over twice as many unanimous decisions as there are 5-4 votes. Having said that, if it's a 5-4 vote, it comes down to this guy. So he's really, really important. Okay, name him, learn him. Okay, hanging on. So you pause it. I'm working my way up right here. All right, and we're going to go to Congress if we can find it. Yeah. So I'm starting to get a little shot here. So this is not as good a teaching as you get in class. But I guess it's better than just having a review sheet to stare at, and you can pause, and if there's some question you got, you can send me an email or see me in the morning, however you want to do it. Okay. So here we go. So we're looking at the House and the Senate. So you look at that thing. The House is the People's Branch. It's got 435 members. The requirements are not as strict. The Senate, the requirements, there's not as many of them. There's only 2 per state. Whereas in the House, the number of representatives per state varies with the population of the state. And the requirements are a little more stringent, although in both cases you got to reside in the state. Okay, operational. The House is the People's Branch. That's, if we made this little analogy to the cup and the saucer. The cup is the House is a cup, heats things up. Folks are all fired up in there. They're representing their district. Going to be a lot of ideological homogeneity. All right, districts tend to be pretty liberal, pretty conservative. Not a lot of swing districts. There's 22, I think. I think it's 22. I'm going to put a 2. I think the number is 22. Standing are permanent committees, and it's not as big a deal to be a representative. All right, the Senate is the deliberative branch. So it's the cup. All right, cools things off. They're supposed to. I don't know what I meant by fence there. Let's change that. Oh my gosh, why is that happening? I got this kid in my junior class, Julio. Y'all know him. He always says, "Why does this happen to me?" I like that line. So, why does this happen to me? Why does this always happen to me? I do this thing and the dang slide starts messing around. Freaking hater of a slide was what it is. Okay, so what if I called this one the cup? And maybe to the house. Get rid of that. Saucer. That's not right. House of the cup. Senate is the saucer. That's what you get. You miss my dang class, and you get the me who is delirious from teaching 4 lectures in 25 minutes. Okay. The broader outlook. It represents the states chosen by state legislature until the 17th Amendment was passed in 1913. So now it's directly elected. 17 standing committees is a bigger deal. They get on TV. They all want to be president one day. Okay, so we've got a feel for this now, having dealt with this stuff a little bit. So the Sam is our Speaker of the House in the House class, the Gold Day class. And Hannah Coos, the majority floor leader in the Senate, even though Williams, the vice president, he doesn't have any real power. The person really running things is the floor leader. All right, and they're responsible for the strategy and so forth, and the whip is a vote counter and make sure everybody knows when the votes come in, that sort of thing. All right, compare that sucker. Pause it if you need to. All right, I got to go down. All this stuff is how a bill becomes a law. Real glad that I took care of that with the interest group. Hey, look at there. There's look at our fun stuff. So there was John Lewis. Hey, it turned out he was right. Right? My gosh. There's Allie's dad with Sonny Perdue. There's a guy who's playing the saxophone there. Interracial friendship. That's a good thing. And here we go. All right. Next, we've got the incumbency effect. So we have this statistic. So now, this is our casework deal. This is that thing. So they've got 3 jobs. Job number 1, making laws. Job number 2, representation. So we're talking about representation. So maybe they're bad at making laws, but they're real good at representation, so that keeps them in there being bad at making laws, right? Okay, so very high re-election rate for incumbents. Those are folks who are in office. They should have had this dang guy playing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. If he had played the national anthem, the Falcons would have won, I believe. What do you think? How's that country music guy? I mean, don't need no country music guy. Country music guy, he was a good guy. He was good, but he can't hit the high notes. All right. Number 1, name recognition is the number 1. The name Remember, Jeff Johnson was the guy, what he said in Distinguished General. You've heard of Tom Graves, so you vote for him because you never heard of the other guy. Constituent service. Here, let's put this. Let's change that. Or I'll put casework because that was the word that was on the that little practice question that we did. You need some help. They do casework for you. The congressman will look into it for you. And the bureaucrats will try to, the bureaucrats want the congressman to stay happy or else they'll, do oversight on them. They'll do police patrol, fire alarm oversight. Why the heck didn't you help us out? All right, they got the free mail. It's called franking So name recognition, franking, PAC money. You give your money to the incumbent because they're going to win. It's kind of a chicken egg deal. All right, credit claiming. They claim credit anytime something goes well, even if it didn't have anything to do with it. Position taking. They'll take popular positions even if they can't do anything about it. Pork. I got to get rid of that picture. That's not nice. I don't like that picture anymore. Once upon a time. There we go. All right. So pork is bringing home the bacon. It's spending projects for your district, and so your district's happy. And so those two senators got a whole lot of money for their states for supporting Obamacare. Okay. Number 8, experience. You're only experienced if you're only rated as a quality candidate if you have experience. And so it's chicken egg deal there. You don't run against an incumbent. Quality candidates wait until you got an open seat. All right. So there's the thing. Remember the little deal? You got 2 with names, and then it's ek. You say, oh, this is gross. So name, good gracious. Name recognition and franking, and then ek. Experience and credit claiming constituent service. All right, 6 and 7. PAC money. So three P's. PAC money, pork money, position taking, and then gerrymandering, which is what we're doing down here. Okay, let's see. Okay, so type of seat. So this is a gerrymandering deal. Almost all the seats are safe seats. There's about 100 competitive seats in the House. If somebody retires, the seat becomes competitive. Okay, so what happens? Every 10 years, they take a census. Some states grow more than others, so you have to reapportion. You have to take seats away from those pink. Watch it mess with me. If it messes with me, I'm going to cuss. No, I'll just say dang. Okay, so all these states up here in the Rust Belt losing seats because they're not growing as fast as the great state of Texas right there. So they lost seats. Texas gained 4 seats. So that's reapportionment when some lose and some win seats. But then you got to draw the districts. So there's Texas districts. So reapportionment is the gaining and losing of seats. Redistricting is the actual drawing. And gerrymandering is the funky shapes. And we had a nice little talk about the fact that we draw these funky shapes in such a way that we never have to deal with anybody that's different from us. The big sort, clustering of like-minded Americans tears apart. All right. So, hey, what do you need? Conservative Gordon County District. You need liberal government teachers. It's good for you. Okay. All right. Hey, make sure you got that. That's what I'm going to start saying. I know I didn't say them. Okay, next. So if they've got all these ways of getting reelected, why do they ever lose? Well, one is a tough issue. All right, and if they make a controversial vote, that'll do them in. Next is a scandal. So a controversial vote or scandal can get them. All right, and the third thing that can get them is the midterms. I would expect the Republicans to lose some seats in 2018. All right, let's see. Okay, 5 influences on a congressperson's vote. So that's one of those lists right there. So the party, they want to do what their constituents want. They want to be popular. What the polls say, the interest groups are going to lobby them, and then do their conscience. Let's see, that's Olympia Snow. She's from Maine. She recently voted against DeVos, one of the 2 Republicans that voted against DeVos. So she didn't go with party on the education thing. All right, so let's see. The Democrats have a party caucus. That's where they choose their leaders. The Republicans have a party conference. That's where they choose leaders and plan things. All right. Making headway. Okay, the leadership. So here we get this next next list. So Paul Ryan's the leader, speaker. He's the Speaker of the House. Second in line, the president. The presidency behind the vice president. The Republicans chose him at the party conference. Okay, he calls on people and he sets the agenda. So, I mean, there's 435 people, so he's got to call on people. He decides what the House is going to talk about. He assigns people to the conference committee. He can reorganize committees if he doesn't like the job a committee's doing, sets time limits. You got to get it out of there. He names the committee chairs. So there's three famous speakers. Joe Cannon during the Gilded Age. Tip O'Neill was a real good bipartisan, kind of blue-collar, working-class Democrat. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, most recently the only lady speaker, and Newt Gingrich was kind of in-your-face kind of Republican speaker during the Clinton years. All right, see how you do. Pause it. Okay, other leaders. The floor leader sets strategy and schedules hearings, tries to win support. Strategy, support, so maybe it's shh. How about that? Don't tell anybody that they've got any of the power. Strategy, support, and then hearings. Shh. Don't tell everybody where the power is. Power is with the party. I like that. Let's see. I'm not looking at it. Strategy, support, and then schedules hearings. That's pretty good. All right. Majority whip. They're helping. They're the counter, and they tell members you got to show up. All right. So that's an important deal. The committee chairman is the most senior member of the majority party, and they schedule hearings, as do subcommittee chairmen. Subcommittee chairmen do the same things. All right. Then you got a minority floor leader, and they're just posing things, and whips are always counting. Okay, on the Senate side, vice president, he doesn't have any real power. Cast a tie-breaking vote. Pence cast a tie-breaking vote. I need to put that on PowerPoint for DeVos, or DeVos. I don't know how to say her dang name. And replace the president if you can't do the job. President pro tempore is the member of the majority party with the most seniority. Okay. So here's the guy with the power. He is the floor leader. He's been going back and forth with Trump a little bit. And you look at him, you see, this is not the guy who's going to run for president. He kind of likes parliamentary procedure. He doesn't have a lot of power, doesn't have near as much power as the speaker has. The most powerful ever was Lyndon Johnson, but it wasn't because of formal powers, because he could intimidate people and learn their secrets. Okay, so there you go. Ryan's got more power than McConnell. All right, that's Chuck Schumer. So, I mean, really the way it goes, in the House, it's Ryan versus Pelosi. And in the Senate, it's McConnell versus Schumer. And he's leading the opposition. He's having a hard time deciding. I don't know what he should do about Gorsuch if I was like his political advisor. I kind of like Gorsuch. So I kind of think they ought to confirm him. But if I'm his advisor, I don't know what's the best thing. If I'm trying to help him do the best thing for the Democrats, I don't know if he ought to oppose, every step of the way, or be cooperative. I don't know which way he ought to go there. So he's facing that. All right, so there they are. I kind of like this. All I do, I'm just saying what's on my mind anyway. I just random rave about politics in my head 24/7 anyway. So I'm just saying it on a dang tape right here, and so there we go. All right, so you got committees here. Committees is where the work gets done. We hadn't done anything but committee work in our little mock Congress. We got to get a floor of the House and floor of the Senate meeting going here pretty soon. But you've got that quote from Wilson saying the real work is done in committee. When they're on the floor, they're just kind of showing off. The majority party gets the majority on every committee. So the thing is kind of rigged to make sure the majority party's bills pass. Okay, there's another thing there. So they want something that's going to be based on, let's go, instead of preference, well, duh, let's go with prestige. I like that better. So they want a high-profile committee. They get a high-profile committee if they're seen as talented, if they are loyal to their party and they want something based on the needs of their district. Let's flip that around a little bit. So, 2, needs of district, state. So those are the things that they want, right? That's what they want. How do they get it is a better way of looking at this. And they get it by being talented, a rising star, or by being a loyal Democrat or Republican. What do they want? Prestige and to help their district. How do they get it? Through talent or loyalty. What do they want? Prestige. It almost. What do they want? Done. How do they get it? Done. You almost got a little say in there, not quite. Kinsey, you're delirious. You're not helping us one bit. That's what you get. Should have been here. Okay, we didn't do that one. We did the second bullet point. Some bills are sent to multiple committees, and if it's an important bill that any committee that's got something to do with it is going to want to hear that bill. Okay, so then we're talking about types of committees here. 22, I think there's 22 standing committees. Those are the permanent committees. And they're trying to work their way up on these committees. Joint committees made with members of both chambers. They usually don't draft legislation. They hold hearings and they do research. A select committee is a temporary committee for some specific purpose, like Watergate, or a conference committee. Conference committee, you know that. The end product, it's made of members of the original committees. Generally speaking, they're coming up with a compromise between the two bills. We hadn't made it to a conference committee yet. Generally speaking, the bill starts things and the Senate is closer to the end product. All right, let's see what we got. Is that everything? That can't be, can it? But maybe. Foreign policy. Let's go down here under interest groups. Oh, you got this thing about iron triangles somewhere. Let's go down there. Iron triangles is a big deal. Let's see if we can find it. Is this it? Yep. All right. So you got several models of how a committee works, and majoritarian model says majority rules. So it's like democracy. And so that's kind of a happy story of committees. Pluralism says, hey, if you can outwork the other side, you can get your way. And so that's also kind of an optimistic theory of things. The more pessimistic theory is the elite theory, that's only the few folks at the top are controlling things. And the very specific version of this is the iron triangle. The congressional committees working with the interest groups and the bureaucrats, and they hang out with each other all the time. And so they're the ones that are really making the policy here. And you've got other folks get involved in this stuff, and so you can add them to the iron triangle. The issue network, and hey, I threw in the definition of rider there. I've had problems with riders in our congressional session. I don't like those dang riders. Gonna have Gonna have a modified open rule for most of our bills when they get to the House and Senate. So you can't do those dang. All right, then you got oversight. Yeah, that's important too. All right, so each committee has a parallel executive agency or department. And so they're kind of taking a look at how that agency is operating. And you have the definition of rider again. And oversight can be police patrol, just checking on things, how agencies perform its job, or fire alarm when there's an emergency. Okay. I think that's it. All right. Let's see how long it ended up being, like 18,000 hours. What do I do to stop it? I can't remember. It's probably going to go for the next 5,000 years. Oh my gosh, if I can just remember how to stop it. Luke, where are you, man? Oh, good grief. What if I just hit save as? Maybe log out. What do you think? You think log out to do it? Sure, want to quit all applications, log out now. No, I don't think I want to do that. Oh my gosh, what about this? Oh, I can't remember what I do. What about this? You think? Dang it.